There we go.
Sweet.
Okay, there we go. Hello. We're back. Say
After
hello,
an
Brian.
unexpected hiatus. Hello, hello. How are we doing tonight?
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm doing well. Hey, there's our good buddy Jerry out of the hospital, doing well, I'm hope.
Oh, fantastic.
Jerry Knapp from 3D Printing and Painting. We've got David Harmon. We've got DePark88. Hello, everybody. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Can they hear Brian?
No loss if they can't. This is
Got
what
my
happens
drink.
every time we.
There's Keith Camps. Gary T says, split screen, double trouble.
Screen, double trouble. Yes, it is.
Keith
And
asks,
I'm not
what
running a
happened?
screen.
Keith asks, what happened last week? YouTube shit the bed.
I took a trip out to Lake Louise and look what happened.
Yep.
Guess I'll need to be here every single time.
Jim's Garage, audio check. On my end, we're not peaking.
I hope I'm not peaking on my end because there are two very loud 30mm fans like right here. So
Mark Hart says he can hear us both. David Sell, welcome. John Kitchen, Miles Clayton. Okay. I think we're about ready to run that intro. What do you say, buddy?
let's do it.
Well, welcome back to the First Slayer live show every Saturday night when we don't have technical difficulties. Hey, let me pull up my good friend. There he is. Hang on. There we go. My good friend Brian Baker is back with me. There we go.
How's it going, everyone?
I hope everybody's got a drink. It's Friday night or Saturday night. Saturday. Yes, Saturday. I got some
I've got
things
my
to show off.
red cola, original taste. I'll let
See,
you
I
take the
put
judgment.
mine in a nondescript glass,
Oh, there we go.
along with nondescript black label stuff.
Ooh.
Anyway, you both sound fine. There's C Club 3D. All right, what are we talking about tonight? Well, we're going to answer your questions like we were going to do last week and show off some stuff that I've been working on, some stuff that Brian's been working on. And we're gearing up for Calgary Expo, for anybody that doesn't know. Calgary Expo happens in about a month and a half. Yeah, about a month and a half.
Is it? Yeah, I guess it. Well, almost 2 months.
We're 6.5 weeks out. 6.5 weeks out. So what is Calgary Expo? You people are asking. Well, Calgary Comic and Entertainment Expo is something that happens here every year, usually the last weekend of April. And they bring in all kinds of guests from movies, television, artist creators, from comic books, online stuff, animation people they bring in voiceover actors and actresses. Who else do they bring in? Now they're starting to bring in some of the cosplay celebrities, which I find kind of interesting. And I just put one of my paints in bad water.
In fear of actually offending somebody, they brought in Mazda and Tesla last year, much to the dismay of many fans. So
yeah, that was weird.
That was an interesting year. So,
so as we gear up, behind me you can see I have my paint booth. It's got a bunch of paints in it right now. You guys still building a 3D printer, or did I miss the finish? No, Jeff, you did not. We are still building it. We're going to get back to it next week. But on tonight's show, the live shows where we get to answer your questions live, and hopefully we can help you out. Some things I want to show you. Are you guys ready? I posted a picture of this recently. This is Luke that I'm working on. And I still have a little ways to go. He's not quite there yet.
Shall we compare him to what an unpainted Luke looks like?
Sure.
Da, 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 da.
There we go.
Shiny blue Luke.
Blue Man Group Luke.
Luke.
So one of the questions I get asked a lot about the paints that I use, what do I use? I use a variety of different paints. So sometimes I use Vallejo, sometimes they're Airline, sometimes I use their normal model line. What else do I use? I use FW inks. I use Liquitex inks. What else do we got here? We've got some shading gray. This is by Golden. This is like an ink as well. What else do we have? Oh, yeah, and I use these things. I also use standard Basics Liquitex in the tube. These are about $5-6 at Michael's here in Canada. And I really like these because I can mix them and thin them down, and then I make my own flesh base. And somebody's going to ask me, how do you make your own flesh base? Well, I take equal parts of raw sienna, burnt sienna, and white. I mix them together. I add in a little bit of X20A thinner. This is an acrylic paint thinner. Sometimes I make my own, and we'll talk about that on another episode. And then I just go to town, and I use my airbrush, which is over there, and I use a Iwata Eclipse airbrush. I do a lot of hand painting as well. So that's my kind of look at stuff that I do. I'm trying to get more realism out of a face. I like to get almost photorealistic. Sometimes they don't work out that way, sometimes they do. But the nice thing about painting is that if you mess it up, you can always go back and do it again. And then
Absolutely.
We have Han. Got Han.
I kind of like flesh tone Han, to be honest. I feel like you need to get blonde hair, like blondie white hair.
And then we can't show too much of her. No, we can show everything.
Yeah.
So we've got, this is the third one in this series, and these are the ones that we're giving away. We have not yet picked a winner. We will be picking a winner very soon. And when we do, you guys will know. And somebody's getting all three of those. That was for our 5,000, for hitting 5,000 subs. And thank you guys very much for that. Okay. Oh, we got somebody from Belgium. ISO Crafts Isolations. Interesting.
Installations, ISOcraft, eh?
ISO.
Tell us what ISOcraft's installation
Yes.
is in the chat. I'm genuinely
Tell us
curious
what it
now.
is.
So while
guys-
Richard's been working on painting,
He's ready for his final primer.
maybe you should explain a bit about that filler, because that threw me off earlier there, because I'm used to like white, yellow milliput, It's not blood splatter.
No, it's not. This is, let's see if I can grab some here real quick. I've got some right here. All this is that stuff.
Oh.
And then I thin it down with acetone, and then I brush it on. So when I go to sand later, especially on 3D prints, works great because it really fills in those really tough layer lines that you can't get at with sandpaper.
Yeah, that is really nice because I noticed right away the smoothness of it. You know, the way that it smoothens, right?
Well, I
That's
always
really nice.
start with filler primer, and I had some around here. I was getting close to being out. Filler primer. There we are. That's the stuff I use. So let's see what we got going on in the chat.
Depark 88 was
Jim's Garage, thanks for all the good tips along the way. Thank you very much. I ordered an EMA 1734 stepper motor from Spool 3D. What is the wire order for the connection? Is it red, black, blue, green, or an Ender 3 Pro? Thanks. I'd have to look that up.
I've got one here, and as far as I know, it didn't require any rewiring. So you should be good with...
It does.
Yeah.
If you're using a NEMA 17 motor from somebody else, the 2 center pins have to be reversed.
If you're hooking it into an Ender Creality printer.
Yes. Yeah. If you're hooking it into a Creality printer, you have to reverse the 2 center pins.
Now, I'll tell you firsthand, if you don't, it's not going to smoke the machine, but it's going to stutter a whole lot, and you'll know right away. So,
yeah.
I think you can also, or no, because I thought they pin reversed on the actual Ender cables, if I recall.
I believe they do.
Yeah, so if you replace them with an aftermarket multicolored thing like that, you may actually be okay as well. But
I would double check that. If we haven't solved your problem, send me an email for Monday.
So, Richard, while you have been working on painting, I've been working on design. And I have got a gorgeous camera angle to share with you guys. Da, 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 da. It's got a BL touch. So, yeah, this is a live view of the bottom of it. Need to say it's much more gorgeous in person, and I'm hoping to have this design finalized in the next week or so. But she's printing with a BL touch on this immaculate Ender 3 retrofit. As with all my designs, it's kind of like it's taking the frame and not actually keeping the innards or any of that fun stuff. But that's been my design project in the last, well, in this case, 12 hours. I've had quite a busy week.
I have too, actually. 3D Printing and Painting, our good friend there from Las Vegas, Jerry Knapp, says a lot of prints never need filler primer or putty. Some prints come out perfect. You're absolutely right about that. It all depends on the resolution that you're printing at. Now that we've discovered the magic number for Creality products especially, my prints are coming out way better. Jim's Garage is asking, how hard is it to get a PL Touch to hook up to a time frame? Or what was the time frame?
Well, considering that it took me longer to design the part, which was about 30 minutes, as long as you know which places to plug it into and you remember to buy the extension cables, it goes in pretty quick. You know, because the BL Touch, for those of you who don't know, and because I'm completely ignorant, it only comes with about, what, 4 inches of cable on top of that thing. So you have to buy usually an extension cable set to actually get the wires over there.
Yeah, but, when I put the one on my CR10, it didn't take long at all.
Okay, I suppose with all these new fun camera angles, I can probably share with you the wiring mess that is this printer right now. So here's the rat's nest in there. And within there is BL Touch wiring. So, but I can tell you I didn't have to rewire anything. It was just plug the connectors in and it just worked on the Gen L board.
You're just a little out of focus.
Yeah, I gotta do the manual focus on this camera. Unfortunately, I don't think the autofocus works too well, but I'll try it here, and we'll maybe transition back to it in a moment.
So
All
R2
right,
is asking,
there
do
we
I
go.
need, there you go. He says, do I need anything hardware-wise to install a BL Touch on the Ender 3 Pro other than the mount? Yes. To do it right, you need a pin 27 board.
Let's
Mr.
talk about
Manny the
27.
boss.
Yeah,
Okay, let's do that, and then I'll get back to Manny's question.
sure. Yeah, the reason I want to talk about pin 27 is because everyone knows pin 27, but they don't know actually why you need a pin 27. And what it is there's a PWM or a pulse width modulation pin that's used to go and pulse the little pin in and out on the BL Touch, and there's usually not a lot of I/O for that. So what pin 27 does is it steals the speaker output that goes to your display, and then uses that to drive your BL Touch. So it's primarily for Creality boards where there's not a lot of additional I/O. But if you use any other board, you probably won't need that. You can actually route it to any PWM pin. And I'm hoping in the future I can find a common board for you guys that I can go and do an example. Maybe I'll do it on this little guy. You know, if you guys want to see something on the original Ramps board, we can do a video on that. Or if there's a specific board that you're having troubles with, post it in the chat because we pretty much have access to all of them.
Mr. Manny the boss says, what is the Meanwell 12 volt 350 watt? That is a power supply. Not a
Yes,
power
and
supply I would put on a Ender 3. I would put a 24 volt 350 on an Ender 3 if you don't have the Ender 3 Pro.
but if you have a
And that,
CR10S, it is enough. I'm using it on the other room
yes.
there actually on my CR10S Pro, or sorry, non-Pro, the CR10S Monster, I call it.
Okay, I knew this question was going to come up. What's the magic number for figurines? Richard, roundabout for good detail. The magic number on any Creality printer to get the best layer resolution is 0.04. So if you want to do something extra fine, 0.04 is your first number. Fine, 0.08. 0.12 to good. 0.16, 0.2, and so on and so forth. Always a multiple of 0.04. So no matter what you're printing, whether it be something like Superman or a small figurine like this, I did these in 0.12. So just a little over 0.1, and the layer lines are amazing.
Now my CR10S still needs some dialing in, but today's print, this guy here, I'll see if I can get a macro shot with the other camera here. This was at 0.16 to give you an idea of resolution on a 0.6 millimeter nozzle. So you can start to see a few layer lines in there. Let's see if it's going to autofocus on me nicely. But
There you go.
0.16 is pretty nice. I would say always start off with 0.12. 0.04 is awesome, but your machine really has to be dialed in, I would say, before you're going to get something clean out at 0.04. You can try 0.08. I think you'll actually have more success with that. But if you're
I
doing
think so too.
miniatures and you have a smaller nozzle, like say a 0.2 nozzle, then I would definitely do 0.04.
You know, it's funny that you say that because when I printed miniatures on the Ender 3 in my office, I did those at 0.12 with a 0.4 nozzle. And they came out beautiful.
Yeah, they do at that point. The problem is if you have any motion in your gantry, you're going to really notice it anything below
Yes.
that. So, yeah.
All right, Jim's Garage. I have a CR10S5, forgot to mention that part. So extra length cables need as well. I don't have that in the cart. You should put those in the cart. You're gonna need about 2 meters.
Yeah, I was gonna say one extension will not be enough for the CR10S5. I would say it's just
Yeah.
got too much distance to travel over the gantry size, and I haven't heard of any electrical noise issues. So I would hinder on the safe side and get two 1 meter ones just to have them on hand. Worst case, if you don't need it,
Where did you buy the BL Touch? Mr. Manny, the boss. We get ours from spool3d.ca. And if you're in the States, you can get them shipped to you. If you want, you can find them on Amazon. Just look up BL Touch.
Just be careful though, and do your research before you buy your BL touches from anywhere that's doesn't I'm going to say doesn't have a storefront, because
Yeah, I
there are
agree.
a lot of counterfeits out there. And even today I've been looking into whether or not the new Creality kit is an official BL touch, because everything I'm looking at with it says it is an official Ant Labs BL touch, which is kind of surprising, because they're selling that with the extension cables and a mount for a Creality printer for I think like $49 from their store. But I thought it was counterfeit because I was looking at the silk screening, but the PCBs have the QR code and everything, so I don't know.
Uh, do you have a good cure profile for PETG? I just use the standard profiles and just change the temperature. That's all I normally do. David Harmon, do you guys use the MKS Base L at all? Does it have the same drivers as the CR10S Pro board? No, and no.
Mm-hmm.
I don't use the Base L because I like to have control over my stepper drivers. The ones that are on the Base L are 4988s.
Pretty
So,
much every board, I think, with the exception of the S base, comes with 4988s on board. So
yeah, I agree with you.
um, the S base comes with DRV 8825s, but those are an issue within itself. But the CR10S Pros, the 2208s, isn't it? The Trinamics?
Yes. Yeah, the
Yeah,
Pro
yeah.
is.
So
It sounds like I'm modulating. Am I modulating?
you just started modulating.
Wow, that's weird.
Now you're back to normal.
Oh, okay.
Weird.
Faison Malik, I'm curious what your opinion is on 3,000 to 4,000 print range versus 500 to 1,000. Are the more expensive printers just overpriced? That's a good question. It depends what you're buying. If you're going to buy a, what's the one I'm thinking about? Zortrax, you are not just paying for the name, you're paying for a printer that's gone through a lot of R&D. They work really well, and we have two of them over at Spool 3D. We have the M200 and the M300, and both of them just work flawlessly. There's very little you have to do to them to get them to print right. Now, those are respectively 2,400 and almost $4,000. So if you wanted to get into something that's a little more industrial, Zortrax is your way to go. If you're just a hobbyist, I think that you should just look at basically going with the CR10, going with the CR10S Pro, staying in that 1,000 to 1,200 range, or actually the 500 to 1,200 range, and you'll get a good printer as long as you take the time to learn that printer.
No, I
Ultimaker,
fully
Maker Gear. He's following it up with Ultimaker Maker. Ultimaker makes a great printer. Maker Gear makes a great printer. The problem being is that they've been in the marketplace for so long. Think of it like this. Sony, Canon, Nikon are all the cream of the crop cameras. If you buy yourself a Polaroid or a Kodak DSLR, you're not getting the same quality. So think of it like that. You're paying some for that premium name, but you're also paying for the exclusivity and the research that has gone into those printers. However, for a hobbyist, I mean, I have 2 CR10s and 2 Ender 3s, and I own a Wanhao D6.
And you know, when it comes down to these printers, I mean, there's got to be a hard point between a commercial machine and a hobbyist machine, right? And this gap has been narrowing very slowly, but also quite rapidly in the past few years. You know, to the point where do we consider something like a Prusa i3 Mark III as an introductory business machine, or do we consider it as a consumer machine? And I would lean it on the side of that one as a beginner entry level on the commercial side. Whereas anything Creality, any of these international new brands, whatever you want to call them, they're great consumer machines. And it's not to say they're a bad printer. It's just that they're not designed and researched for the duty cycles that a commercial producer would put them through. But if you're a
Agreed.
hobbyist, I'll be honest, there are $150 machines out there that will outpace a $700 machine as long as you know how to use it and tweak it to your advantage.
I just want to recognize C-Dub 3D. Thank you very much for the $2 on our, what is that, Super Chat. We have Super Chat available if you guys want to drop some coffee money in there. It goes to helping the channel. We don't get paid by Spool 3D to do the show, just so you guys are aware. Full disclosure, I actually work at Spool 3D, so that's what I get paid for. I don't get paid for doing the show. Have we played around with Pathio yet? I'm not even sure what Pathio is.
I'm going to look all these things up in the meantime. I'm trying to get my second monitor here going with everything.
Sebastian Love, hello, sir. I bought the Creality BL
slice.
Touch for my Ender 3 Pro, and all is good. The $49 one. Sounds good.
Oh, Pathio is what E3D's calling that slicer.
Oh, yes. No, I haven't yet.
I've
heard.
I can't say I'm impressed with it.
I've heard that it's very basic, but I haven't looked at it yet. I will, though. Oddsball says, I have an Ender 3. What should I get next if I want better prints and 300 by 300 build? CR10S or S Pro?
Pretty much. Don't try to raise or increase the size of the build plate on the Ender 3. You can go up really easily, but going outwards, you're building a whole new frame. Yeah, I know everyone's talking about this slicer here. Everyone and their dog right now is going through and playing with this slicer, and I think I've seen a common consensus that it's an interesting idea. It's good to have competition, but number one, being that it's targeted for commercial customers and that the beta is the only time it's free, that's a concern for me. And number two, from what I've played with it so far, it seems the rush to release a beta was a bit advantageous in my mind. I did not like a lot of the features that it had in there, and I didn't like how it had some interesting crashes. At least, I decided to try it on a computer that's not designed for 3D printing and doesn't have a lot of horsepower, just to see if they write it from the ground up, will it be optimized for that? Not at all. No, it crashes all over the place. So give it a try. Let us know. But my initial impressions are enough for me to say I'm going to put it on the back burner for 4 months. But there are a couple other slicers that are not mentioned that I'm looking into, and I'm hoping to drop some information on those soon, just because, Cura is not the end-all be-all, Simplify 3D is not the end-all be-all, and any competition's good.
I agree. 100% I agree on that. Now, I'm learning Cura more and more. I think with the new S3D that's coming out that they're going to be charging for, which is version 5, I believe.
Yeah, I hope it's version 5 if they're charging for it.
Yeah, I think it's version 5 that they're charging for. They're charging an upgrade. I don't mind paying an upgrade, but I want to see significant leaps forward. I mean, you've got Cura, who's got tree supports and now some other features that Simplified 3D just doesn't have. And Simplifies 3D has struggled with different support types, such as tree supports and things like that. So I'd like to see more from that before I commit to purchasing another version. Idea Maker 3D Printing Llama says, haven't tried that yet.
Hey, look who we have in the chat. Scott Latine.
Scott Latine. So, IsoCrafts, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just reading the names he's throwing out there. That's great.
So, IsoCrafts installation says, what should be a good ratio on printing speed, jerk, and acceleration? The standard Cura speeds were very high, it seems, just for a good print with PLA. Okay. This is a subjective question. For myself, I print at about 200 to 205, or pardon me, 205 to 210 degrees. My bed is always at 60. My speed of print is always at 40 millimeters per second. My jerk is 5, and my acceleration is 500. That's where I get my best print. Magic 3D printing, hello, sir.
I was just going through my latest Marlin settings, you can see here, I'm trying to remember what all my numbers are, but 500 is the magic number for acceleration, I find, especially on Creality machines.
Yeah.
If you have the 10S4 or the 10S5, I'd actually, especially the 10S5, I'd drop that acceleration to about 300. And then I'm actually using junction deviation, but otherwise, jerk settings you can use 5 to 8 is the nominal values in my books normally.
Mr. Manny the boss says, I'm building a Prusa clone. So are we.
I expect Mr. Manny to post those photos on our Facebook group so we can compare our two printers. That's the greatest thing about having a clone.
By the way, we have been working on our website. It's not complete.
Yes.
But it is up. There's nothing really there. But you can contact us through the website, thefirstlayer.com. We are working to get it done more. I talked with somebody today that might be able to help us out with getting it filled up. So we're working on it. And if you don't know, if you're new here, you can find us on Facebook. You can send me messages both on Twitter at ClevelandIam and on Instagram at ClevelandIam. Rob Scannion, ditto.
I love building printers. I haven't actually built one from the ground up, which is why this series is kind of intriguing for me, because I've only just modified them beyond repair.
Now, I should answer some of the questions that came in after we did part 2. Why didn't we show building the frame? The reason that we didn't is because you don't want to see me turn every friggin' screw. There's a lot of screws in there. So
plus we get demonetized with your language.
Yeah, exactly. So we went ahead and built the frame. I'll talk more about that frame as we go forward, but right now the frame is assembled. We're going to show you how to put the rods in, how to put the bed on. That's coming up on Tuesday. And then on Thursday, we're going to start getting into building the X and the Z carriages. And at the end, and I want to reiterate this because people have asked me about it, at the end, we will put a full bill of materials with the retail costs of everything that we did. But that won't come until the end. And then there will be a big blog post on our website. Do you recommend installing a second Z-rod and gantry to help stabilize the x-axis on the Ender 3 or CR10. CR10, yes. Ender 3, no. Ender 3
Completely
doesn't.
agree with you on that one. Actually, I can probably show you guys. Here is the gantry on the Ender 3 Dual that's only on one side. And I'm going to try and move that thing up and down. Basically, I'm shaking the whole frame. So, and that's with a single Z rod. So with the CR10S, when you get to that 300 mil, it does help a little bit for stability, mostly with vibration on the upper levels. But with the Ender 3 being as small as it is, you won't get any vibrations, I think, anything noticeable. And if you are, maybe you need to tighten up the bolts first.
Check those eccentric spacers. Here's a great one. Can you explain how more perimeters make a stronger part, or just exactly what are perimeters? Perimeters are the thickness of the wall of your print. So I wish I had something that was kind of messed up here. I could show you.
Actually, I think I got a part here. Let me see if I can actually get.
Okay.
There we go. Look at that.
Okay. So in the side picture there, you can see that you've got two perimeters, correct?
I do. Now this is from a 0.6 nozzle, so it's you know, exaggerated quite a bit. So this is the same effective wall thickness as a 3 perimeter on a 0.4 millimeter nozzle.
Gotcha. On a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, your walls, or each perimeter, is going to be 0.4 millimeters. So if you have 3 perimeters, that is 0.12, no, pardon me, 1.2 in thickness. So that's 1.2 millimeters thickness on your wall. Anything more than 3 perimeters is kind of a waste of plastic. So what I would say is, if you're doing a figure, let's take Han here for better look at it. If I did less than 3, I wouldn't have such a strong outer shell. Now my top layers and my bottom layers are different as well. My bottom layers are based on your layer height as well as your top layers. So typically on something like this, I would do 0.12 as my resolution. I know that I'm going to put 3 perimeters or 3 walls, which is going to translate into 1.2 millimeters. But I'm going to do probably 5 bottom layers at 0.12. I'm going to do 8 top layers at 0.12. That is going to give me a strong top. It's going to give me a strong bottom. It's going to fill in the bottom, and it's going to fill in the top. So I only put about 10% infill in any model that I do. Sometimes 15, depending on the model. But that's going to cover all of that space between the infill. And then I get a nice smooth top. I don't have to sand a lot.
I know this is a question I've raised before because it gets confusing. So maybe I'll take the prime camera here. I'll show you guys in Cura. This is where it gets a little bit misleading.
Here, I'll give you full screen here.
Yeah, I was going to say if you could, yeah, just because it's a little, this Cura takes up the whole screen. Okay, cool. So in Cura, if you expose every single setting, where it gets confusing is they want you to represent your thicknesses and your layer numbers in the millimeter measurement, and then it will calculate the actual top layers. Now, as far as I know, I've never seen you be able to go and do this and have it actually work properly. Maybe that does just cut out the measurement, but if you notice this little F here, it means to say that this was normally calculated based off the other value. So if we go and say here we want the top, in this case it's configured for, what is it, 0.1 millimeter layer height. That's why it's saying 8 layers to get a 0.8 millimeter wall thickness. Personally, I would always say never put in a value here that's going to throw off and make it an even layer count, because it's just going to cause layer issues. Just make sure that your wall thickness is a multiple of your nozzle size. So in this case, 0.4, and that your layer height or your top layer measurement is a multiple of whatever your Z layer height is. And you can check that, because if you go and type in 0.9 here, it's going to just round it up and go to the next thing. But that doesn't really mean it's 9 layers, I don't think. So for the cleanest print, make sure it's the same. Now we can see on the preview here, Richard and I, I showed you my print just there with 2 layers of wall thickness, and that's what you end up getting. If you end up going and adding an additional perimeter, so in this case change to 1.2 millimeters, we'll let her chop up, and you'll see it just adds an extra layer of thickness in there. So this is a good thing to do if you start seeing your infill lines banding through, or if your exterior walls are stronger. And as a bonus, usually when you thicken up these, you can actually thin out your infill quite a bit. So I usually bring mine back to 10%, 8%, just because 3 walls, it's strong enough, really. So there's your quick crash course on Cura for that tonight.
Well, that works for me. So Jade Trake is saying a slicer like Slicer 3 or Slicer will assume a filament line as a rectangle with the width of your nozzle and the height of your layer. It adds half a circle on each side of the rectangle, so the line is not 0.4. Well, then that sort of screws up the math.
I'm going to stand with Mr. Tom Sandlander there and say it's Slick 3R.
Slick 3R.
I'm sure that's good. Actually, he put out a video recently about it, and I completely agree with him. When you mention to someone about Slicer, are you talking about the generic product, or are you talking about that program? So I'm going to stand with him on calling it Slick 3R, and you guys can all give me a bunch of thumbs down in the chat if you feel against that. But yeah, it's an interesting video if you haven't had a chance to see it. He comes up with some funny acronyms.
Now, for all of you guys that have been asking over the last little while for me to do a house studio tour and show you how I've got all my makerspace set up, that's going to be coming probably in May. I want to get this area cleaned up a little bit first, and then you guys will get to see how I've got everything set up and how I paint and all that other kind of good stuff.
As for me, well, this is it. I just didn't put up a green screen tonight because I was too lazy. So this is all I got to work with.
I've got a ton of projects. I mean, I've got all this painting. I got a robot to finish building. What are you doing for Calgary Expo?
Trying to get time off work. That's a challenge within itself. Really, I'm kind of thinking about what new things to print up, because I just got my CR10S up and going. Again, I just got this newest design on the Ender 3 Dual working, so I'm hoping to maybe fire up some PVA tonight or tomorrow to test the calibrations there. I just, my test print today was a Glitch from Reboot. You can find this one on Thingiverse. The guy just remixed it, or this one fellow, he just remixed it. I'll have to look at the part number, but he remixed it so that the cog actually sits on the wheel now. Beforehand, it was the wheel was too small, so you couldn't fit it on there. So fired this out in a couple hours, and now I'm thinking about what next big thing I want to print on the CR10S.
There you go. I've still got bases to print, a few other things.
Yeah. Jerry, work, what's that? That's the thing that funds this project until OAP kicks in for me in about 30 years.
Yeah, you're still young.
Yeah, I still got a few years for you to empty out the CPP.
Yeah, it's going to come. With that said, guys, we're all, well, we got 15 minutes. Let's
yeah, we've just
take
been
some questions here.
We've been firing through tonight.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone, for not having videos out this week. Everything that could go wrong went wrong this week, so we didn't even get a chance to post a message saying those videos weren't coming out. And
I was out of the office for 2 days.
Yeah. If you didn't
Sick.
see on the Facebook group there, it's been bloody cold here. So it's not been very fun to do any outdoor activities. My windows are already frozen closed, so I can't even open them up.
Well, we're currently sitting at minus 28, I think.
Did it cool down again to that? I haven't
I think
checked.
it did. I'm just going to check now.
Magic's saying we
Minus
should build a
24.
hyper.
That's minus 24 Celsius for all you American people.
Yeah. Jerry's asking who's the ladies in the pic behind you. I wasn't sure if I was gonna go move that out of the way or not, but that's my Mrs. Nicole who's watching the Flames game in the other room right now, and her sister from a couple of years ago. That photo. I generally don't have a lot of photos. I have like posters and stuff of people, but I did a really bad Photoshop of that back when I was young and naive, and it seemed to come out okay. So we printed it and framed it, which is why it's kind of like a hippie looking background.
So here's somebody who's really pushing us. Magic 3D Printing says you guys should build a hypercube next. We've been talking about it. We've been putting stuff aside. We are going to build a hypercube, a really big one.
I've been collecting aluminum. I've got got some black stuff, got some silver. These 1.5 meter lengths. These are awesome. I love these. They can stretch your back and everything. But
there you go.
We had a special order in 3030 aluminum because it's not a common thing that's carried.
Yeah.
So we're still planning it because the size we want to do is just outright stupid. So we have to put a little bit of thought into it and think, did the poor guy who built that Excel calculator actually think, is someone really going to build something that big? So
ours is going to need wheels.
Probably on the
Mark
top
Hart,
end.
Mark Hart's are asking, when you pause a print so you can change filament colors at a certain layer height, is there any way to edit the G-code where it will purge on the side like it does when it starts in Cura? Yes. You just basically tell it in a process that you want it to purge a little bit of material. What I typically do is I just push it through. But yes, you can do it. Jay Drake, were any of you going to Murph? No. That's the short answer. We wanted to go to Murph.
What's that from? Midwest?
Yeah, it's the Midwest
Coming
rep rap.
from someone who lives in the West, that is not the Midwest.
We were looking for a sponsor to send us out there, and unfortunately we were unable to find one in time. So we're not going to Murph.
I can tell you guys, because I've been booking a lot of flights lately for heading out to the Toronto area and all that stuff. You're looking at over $1,000 round trip for Canadians, and unfortunately for us, where we sit in Canada, the next biggest U.S. airport, because that's where we would save the money, is in Billings, which is probably about a 10 or 12-hour drive. So it's unfortunately not beneficial. If they had something in Montana or North Dakota, we might actually be able to drive to it, but unfortunately, Midwest one's a bit too far. So, in fact, it's actually
it's a 26-hour drive.
Yeah, it's something crazy like that.
It's a 5-hour flight, but a 26-hour drive.
So, we're trying to do...
Go ahead.
I was just saying, we're trying to do these things more in the future, but we're still honestly funding all this out of our own pockets, to be honest.
Yes.
So, it's a costly thing. And I mean, as much as we want to come and party for 3 days, because that's really what these events are all about, it takes a little bit more planning until you either have a sponsor or we become a bigwig YouTuber, which you guys could help by subscribe, give me a thumbs up.
Yeah, the more engagement we get on this channel certainly helps. So like, subscribe, comment. I don't care if your comments are good or bad. If I'm doing something wrong and you think I'm doing something wrong, put that in the comments. Just don't
worry,
be
we'll make
belligerent. That's all
we'll make sure to keep this just above a family-friendly channel so we can keep our comments.
Yeah, because right now, believe me, they're checking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good for them. It's a bit reactionary, but once you've seen what's happened, it's a shame that that's what has to be done, but it might be the only solution.
Exactly. Jay Drake is saying he's going to be in Calgary maybe in July. Well, come see us at spool3d.ca. When you're in, or let us know when you're coming. We'll try and get together.
We really need him to put something on the homepage of Spool 3D that says, "Yeah, we have a storefront."
Yeah.
The amount, even when I visited on Friday, people were coming in and said, "Oh, there's a storefront here." Oh,
We hear that every day. Didn't know you guys were here. So great that we've got somebody.
Jerry's in Vegas, and airfare from Vegas to Calgary is extremely cheap. So, if you don't start up a Midwest or I guess Western Rep Rap Festival, then I guess we're just gonna have to show up in the middle of the desert and 3D print some snake traps.
Yeah, we could do that. Or we could just do our own here in Canada,
Yeah.
because there isn't one.
Mm.
We
What do you
have
guys
to.
think? Would you want to see? Would you want to see a Western Canadian Rep Rap Festival or similar? I don't. It doesn't even have to be on a Rep Rap name because we used to have what was it there?
Maker Faire.
Maker Faire. Yeah, and that seems to have unfortunately vanished off the face of the earth.
Well, I haven't
Just as
heard
these
yet
things
if they're
pop
going to
up.
do one.
Well,
I,
they didn't do one last year, so
no, but there were circumstances behind that.
yeah. Scott's driving from Austin. Yeah, but Scott, actually, honestly, Scott, I'm surprised you don't have a sponsor, man. For those of you who don't know Scott here, Scott is the current maintainer and I'm going to call him Moses of the Marlin firmware. He is the maintainer of it all. So thumbs up to this guy. If you haven't had a chance to throw him a couple bucks his way too, because he's been working hard to get Marlin 2.0 out. And I noticed that because he suddenly went and commented and closed off a bunch of my tickets on GitHub. So woohoo, good for you, buddy.
Now, did he close them off because they were good or because they were bad?
Well, there's no comments, so we'll see. But honestly, Marlin 2.0, the stuff that's been coming out in there, that's what's running on the Ender 3 Dual on the 8-bit board. So I've been testing it on 8-bit and 32-bit for you guys because day one, I want to give you guys some real good config files to get rolling with it. It is fantastic.
Well, we'd love everybody to come if we put on a Rep Rap festival of some sort. We are going to talk to our local rep for Maker Faire and find out what's going on this year. If they have a Maker Faire, we're not going to do one. If they don't have a Maker Faire this year, then we're going to try and work with them to try and do another type of maker style fair. Now, what am I missing here? Did I miss any questions?
No, people are just telling us how awesome
Okay.
we are, and
Oh,
I
thanks.
really appreciate to hear that because
Me
I've
too.
had a bit of a lull with 3D printing lately, and I got really discouraged from doing stuff. So this weekend I managed to fire up everything, get it going, get some design work going, and the support from everybody has been great, and I appreciate it.
It has been, and we
Um,
appreciate you guys.
and
Jim's
I know you've been.
Garage. Go ahead.
I was saying you've been going through some stuff too, and you know I'm glad we've been able to support you and be here waiting for you when you came back.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Jim, what am I saying here?
Jim's Garage.
Jim's Garage. Should my S5 be up to date with firmware settings? Yes. Should come out with the latest factory firmware.
Are you asking should it be up to date or should you update it though? Because that's two questions in itself. Creality has updated very quietly all their firmwares on their site to Marlin 1.1.6. And although that's not the latest release, it's still a pretty darn good release versus the 1.1.0 they were using beforehand. And they have actually gone and finally turned on thermal runaway protection on the hot end and bed by default. So if you are comfortable with updating the firmware, by all means, go ahead and do it. I would always recommend going vanilla Marlin, but if you're nervous,
Yeah,
start off with the Creality one, learn the settings, and then translate those over to the new Marlin config files.
I agree. I got to take a shout out here to Shantakumar Merchant. Greetings from Mumbai, India. This
Oh
is
my
first
goodness.
online watching. Well, we appreciate you being here. Johnny Gardner, I have a question before I answer your question. Did you get your tools, and why didn't you take a picture with all your new
Sounds like he
tools?
got the tools and started tweaking his motor. That's why he started getting layered shit.
Any way to stop layer shift? Slow down. Slow down your printer.
Slow
Make sure
down and
everything's
don't mess
tight.
with the voltages.
Yeah, make sure everything's tight. That you got no slack in the belt, and you should be good to go, and slow it down.
Because I can probably show you guys. Let me fire up Pronterface here. Let's transition. Here's my, so my motor right now. Let's see. I think I'm at X110, something like that. Okay, so you can see it moves. It's kind of quiet. If your voltages are too low, you're going to get a lot of stutters. And to show it as an example, if I set my motor voltage to 100 milliamps, and we try and do a move, actually, amazingly, 100, it tries. But if I hold it down, there's almost nothing resistance-wise on it, right? So you always have to set your motor voltages to something that that the system can handle, right? And that's the biggest thing. Um, if it's too low, it's going to jitter, and if it's too high, you're actually going to overheat the motors.
There you
There
go.
he is. I didn't even realize you swapped over to it there. Yes, I was planning on squeezing it within the frame, so I wasn't sure if you guys saw me hitting my finger against the motor because that shouldn't have worked at 100 milliamps, but I guess it does.
I've printed more in the last month than in the last 4 years. Just finished my first full roll. LOL, Jay Drake says. Well, good for you. Could it be worth to upgrade a FlashForge Creator Pro away from the stock board so it could run Marlin and take G-code stock? I don't have enough experience with the FlashForge Creator Pro. So for now, I'm going to say leave it the way it is and just try and get factory updates if you can. Is there any
That's
way to
not a cheap
determine what?
machine either, is it?
Yeah. Is there any way to determine what version Marlin is on my Ender 3? I can tell you exactly what version is on. 1.01. And
Now, I
there's
could
no
be
way
a
to check
little.
unless you.
Actually,
There is.
I think
I
you
lied.
can.
There is.
Let's see. I don't know if this is going to come across clear. Let me see if I can clear my console here. I'm working with a Pronterface, and if you're not familiar with Pronterface, it's an excellent little UI just to test printer settings from Windows or whatever. Let me just see here. So I got 7 different windows open right now. I always need more screens. I'll get Richard to send the camera over to me here.
Yep. I will do that right now.
This is the problem when you have so many browser windows open. Perfect. There we are. So when you connect to your printer, um, whether it's through your printer UI, Cura, or even Octoprint, it has a negotiation with the printer. And what you can see on the right here is the console output of when it connects to the printer. So it starts with the message connecting and start. Printer is now online. Now, in my case, at least with mine, it actually prints the Marlin version, like the actual printer returns the Marlin version last when it was updated. So in this case, the version I downloaded from the GitHub was on January 20th, and it was compiled this afternoon. And it goes and gives you all the different information about all your printer settings there. So you may actually be able to check your printer version just by uh, downloading. It's a part of the suite called Print Run, and I'll post a link to it in the chat there. You can download this, connect through the serial port, and then you can actually do a full print right from this UI just by loading a model in here. You can also test your settings, get your graphs. It's a really good test interface if you're just stuck, basically. So, I mean, anyone who does have a printer handy, if you want to try this, because none of my machines are stock anymore. Go ahead, hook up your printer to Windows, connect, and see what it says in there. See if it does say Marlin 1.1.0. Scott, actually, if you're still in the chat, maybe you can tell me if that feature was added in later or if that's been there for quite a while.
Hey, Ben and Christy are online with us.
Hey, Ben, how's it going?
They're driving home. They're listening.
All right, who we got here? I'm going to be hunting for some good quality name brand Pet G. Are there any recommendations? I'm almost out of Color Fab N-Gen. I'm not a fan of no name or rebrands.
Well, I use Spool 3D because it's convenient. I'm close to it. All I have to do is go in the warehouse and grab a box when I need it. Have I used any other Pet G? No. Would I trust other Pet G? Sure, depending on what it is. There are brands I stay away from because I haven't had great success with them. Amazon Basics is one.
Oh.
We've got, what else did I use? I used that Sunlu. Don't use it.
Mileage may vary, I'm going to say, on a lot of these because for those of you who don't know, by the way, Sunlu has rebranded to 3D Hero. So if you see them mixed back and forth, it's the same thing. Ben's saying Solutech. I haven't tried their Pet G, but I've tried their PLA, and I was very happy with, especially with their silvers. Their silver was gorgeous.
Jim's
but what I like
Garage
about
is
Spool 3,
Hatchbox.
interesting. I've been up and down with Hatchbox, and yet even CC Tree, which is what Creality ships with, that stuff's been amazing for me. So it's very up and down. What I can tell you about Spool 3D's one, though, after trying several brands, Spool 3D is nice in that it actually has an extremely low melting point. Its range is like 200 to 240. So if you're looking not so much for the high temperature tolerance, but you want to print really nicely on Bowden systems that don't have an all-metal heat break, the Spool 3D one's going to give you a bit more flexibility on your temperatures and not push you towards that melting transition zone of your PFTE liner. Rob Scat had good luck with Amazon's Basics. That's awesome. I mean, maybe they fixed it, but I've still got a sealed box in the room over there because I was too lazy to return it. When I measured that stuff going through my machine, it was creeping up on 1.82, 1.85 millimeters, and was actually scraping the inside of my nice, expensive Capricorn tubing. So I wasn't too thrilled with it.
Now, asking about filament, I'm going to say this, it's subjective. Everybody has a different experience. So I've had great success with MG Chemicals, eSun, Spool 3D, a couple of others. I haven't had great success with a filament that you gave me, Brian.
Yeah, that was .ca stuff. And guess what? I threw that on my machine today and it purred away. So, this is
6
truly
of one,
your
half a
mileage.
dozen of the other.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it has to do with the machine you're using, or I won't say the machine, but the environment, because you and I have very similar machines. And
yes,
I think that it has to do with the environment. If you've got a drier climate in your home, it might work better. If you've got a damper climate, like we have at the shop, because it has to stay somewhat moist in there. I didn't have great success. It kept clogging on me. That being said, it's what works best for you. Try different ones. Try Protopasta. We will be looking at some filaments from filaments.ca in the very near future. We just started negotiations with them. So we will be getting some of their brands that they carry, and we're going to be talking about them on the show. Now, we don't typically do filament reviews. I think filament reviews are subjective. For every person, they're going to be different. I could say this works great for me, but it may not work great for you. So,
And even with that, I think there's something we have to familiarize people with because we don't talk a lot about the technicalities of filament. I'm just gonna pull this Spool 3D one that's sitting right on my Ender 3 Dual here out, but there's one element that you can't really cover in the review, and that is, let's see, is it actually on here? This nice little code up here, which usually indicates your batch code, because every company is going to go and make, let's just throw a number out there, 10,000 reels of filament. Now they'll do all of that in one color, and will sell that, and then they'll wait until they have more demand for an additional load, and then they'll buy new plastics that month, new color blends that month.
yeah,
And we've seen this when going through different facilities of manufacturers, is how much backstock of a single uh, die basically do they have, because that could change month to month, and every spool can change batch to batch. Now, I can
exactly.
safely say, at least in Spool 3D, half, pretty much every reel I've bought, I don't have two different grays in a package. That's been a nice thing to find, right? Whereas some of the cheaper brands, it actually has varied. And the reason we don't like to do filament reviews is because I could buy off Amazon.ca, let's say, by no example, any company. I buy that filament and I tell you, this is the greatest filament in the world. Go and buy it. But since I put out that video, they sold out of that batch and they ordered a new batch. Now, let's say there's either a defect or a color tonal change on it. I can't account for that, right? And it's the same thing that happened with the 3D printers.
Right.
With, like, say, the Ender 3s, how they kept on changing. It's a very difficult game. So we might post, and say, hey, we got this one this month, and here's, how it looked. But we can't evaluate the properties because it's going to change every single batch.
Agreed. Rich, are you using G code to load filament with the Bondtech extruder? No,
You
I'm
should,
not.
though.
I should.
We had a
Um,
discussion about this week because that bond tech is amazing and terrible at the same time. So it provides an incredible amount of torque, which is nice, but when it jams, it has so much force that it will shoot the Bowden tube right at the end. And
agreed.
changing filament on that thing, the only way to do it outside of G code is, I shouldn't say that the only way, but the only ways we've done, is, I usually unscrew the clamp and feed it in by hand, because the firmware, I still haven't found the exact speed setting for the Z extruder or the E extruder move, but it's slow, right? If you use Marlin 2.0's filament change feature, it will definitely rock it out at a higher movement rate. But there's also the risk that if you overfeed and it jams, it does some messy things. Um, Key with the Bondtech is low acceleration, and then you can maybe get up to some high speeds, but don't ram filament into your hot end.
Yeah, I agree. I
If you're going to
typically,
feed it,
when I'm
I would say
changing
maybe,
filaments,
yeah.
I just basically pause my machine and do it by hand. I
So
manually
you
feed it
you
in. So
unscrewed as well, right?
yeah, yeah, and I
Yeah, you
manually feed it
unscrewed
in.
and yeah. Um, I'll talk about this when I do my Marlin 2.0 video, but they have an unload and load millimeter size, and I can't recall what the default is right now, but I know I can have it auto load at least 200 millimeters at a go at about 40 millimeters per second. The problem I find is I still need to loosen the screw sometimes just to get it to feed between that little funnel, I'll call it, the filament funnel, and actually into the gears. It seems to clog up quite a bit. So I honestly, I was this close on Friday to removing the Bond Tech from my CR10 and going with a traditional aluminum extruder assembly, because I have not had a good time with it,
See,
which
and
is a
I've had no
shame.
problem with mine.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe it's just a manufacturing defect in mine, but they certainly were not helpful when I contacted their tech support. It was just kind of like, well, did you actually do it right?
Johnny Gardner's asking, any idea when your Marlin video will be done? Uh, Probably about mid-March, or in the latter half of March. That's the one we're shooting for. Cheryl C.
Yeah,
Good evening, Rick and crew. Good evening, Cheryl C.
for the longest of time, I've actually had this thought that we should do a multiple series on the little bits within Marlin, and I've been hoping to target it for Marlin 2.0 because the configuration has changed so much. But I'm curious if you guys want to see like detailed breakdowns of going through the entire Marlin config, especially with newer versions coming out. Let us know in the chat. We can probably do one even for 1.1.9
Yeah,
because
we
it's still
can.
quite popular.
I'm not sure when the new one's coming out. I don't know. Have you gotten any insight in on that?
I think Scott will agree with me when I say soon.
All right. Well, we are 10 minutes, 11 minutes over our time this evening. I want to thank you, everybody, for showing up tonight and asking your questions. We feed on your questions. And of course, we love you guys here in the chat and anybody who's watching in the after show or in the rebroadcast of this. Leave a comment, leave a like. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Hit the little bell so you get notified every time we do a brand new episode. Brian, you want to add to that?
No, just keep on chatting, keep on posting. Visit us on the Facebook group because we love to see your prints on there, and we love to be told how wrong we are because we do make a lot of mistakes.
That's true.
But that's why we
We're
try to
not
keep this
perfect.
channel.
We're trying
I
to
know
get our experience out to you guys. And we're just like you. We struggle as well, and we have to look things up, but that's why we do it for you so you don't have to. The other thing I want to say is we have t-shirts, not this t-shirt, but we have t-shirts and mugs and sweatshirts. And I saw somebody had bought a mug, a couple of mugs.
Yeah.
And posted it over on our Facebook page.
It's kind of bad when someone buys a mug from us. I'm like, is that what it looks like? That's amazing. I should get one.
I don't even have one.
It's so purple. I have this obsession with purple lately, and oh my gosh, all this purple merchandise is making me excited.
So if you'd like to get yourself a t-shirt, go over to our Facebook page. There's a link there, and you can grab yourself a t-shirt. I do apologize for the price of them, but we are using an outside agency to do them because we can do one-offs. Eventually, we will bring it into house when we can afford to. But right now we can't. So support us by buying a t-shirt over at Teespring.
But you know what? If they send us the mail shop, maybe we can slip in a keychain or something for them.
I still have some of the old ones.
Yeah, I still got a few of those too.
TFL Facebook group has been very helpful this week. Thanks, Ronnie Julian says. You're very welcome, sir. We have a lot of great people over there. If I can't answer questions, Brian can't answer them, somebody can. And with that said, I just want to remind you guys that the first layer is always your foundation to a great print, and we'll see you guys next time.
See ya.